Bankruptcy was the ultimate setback that turned into the ultimate setup.
I'm here today with my very dear friend, Victoria Washington, who is the founder of House of We. And we're here to talk about money today. And the reason I wanted Victoria is because her frame on money is so interesting. It's so different than anything I've ever heard. And as much as I teach about manifestation, I love your take on it. It's really fresh. So I'm really glad that you're here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So, all right, let's just start with the real basics.
Okay.
Why is money such a loaded topic for people?
Because money is directly connected to our survival. It's also one of the most confronting relationships that we're gonna have because our transactions expose our values. They expose what we believe in.
Oh my God, that's so good. Can we just like pause on that?
I think it's one of the most powerful gateways to understand parts of yourself that other things probably wouldn't expose. So I never planned on even teaching money or making money a huge focus. But then as I went on my own journey of financial growth, there's just so much that kept being revealed to me and my character, my values, and the way that I saw the world. And when we can create an autonomous relationship with money, it's not about being liberated with a bunch of money, it's being liberated from money and then bringing your value, your character to that relationship. Yeah. Whereas most of society is living as money brings that to me. Money brings me abundance, money brings me character, money brings me values. So it's flipping that on its head, and that journey in itself is rich with transformation.
Yeah, and honestly, I imagine that unraveling that has felt like really lonely at times. Did you ever feel like you looked around and you were like, nobody else understands this or even really grasps it?
Yeah, there's parts of the journey that felt lonely, and then there was parts where it felt noisy. You know, when I first even knew that having a relationship with money was a thing, I was leaving Chicago, about to start my business, had like $400 to my name, and I quickly started to sell packages and things like that, and I noticed it was so uncomfortable. But I didn't know that you could like work on your money mindset. I had no idea that that was a thing. I was just like, when I get more money, then this will be more comfortable. So then you keep just chasing that.
Yeah.
Then I came across the world of self-development and coaching, and that's when I realized, oh, everybody's on some level talking about this. So it went from being lonely to then you had all these opinions and voices in the room. Then I was like, okay, all y'all are crazy. I'm gonna go back over here.
Right.
And that's when my relationship with God really started to become strong, because the world can't train you for the stewardship that God has chosen you for. And I had to go into my relationship with God by myself to really understand, okay, what is this teaching me? Because it's easy to go into the self-development world and pick up other people's limiting beliefs and thoughts, where we're marketed certain narratives of like, oh yeah, when you get to this part, it's gonna be hard. Well, said who?
Right.
Oh yeah, when this happens, you're gonna have to deal with this. So I just noticed that, and I was like, no, we have to have a strong sense of self and a strong sense of what we're meant to do on this planet when we are in all of that work, because it can easily put things on you that you weren't even meant to move through. So there were times where it felt lonely and there were times where it felt noisy, but when it felt most at peace is when I was allowing God to shape me and then bringing that to the industry and bringing that to my relationship with money. And that's where the House of We really came to life.
Yeah. And it sounds like also a lot of this is just about questioning everything that you're told and that you hear and sorting through it. Yeah. You've always been like that, I feel like, though. Like you've always asked questions and been like, why?
I've always asked why, but I've also been able to see, I'm a truth teller. So I like to understand the root of something, and I can see when somebody's staying on the surface and when there's more to dive into, which is why my whole career around money got started, because I thought that money mindset was just it was a cheap conversation. It turned into a cheap conversation. I think it started off helping a lot of people and it brought a lot of awareness to the room, but it turned into a cheap conversation where people were just repeating the same thing and then selling it. And I was like, no, that's not what's happening here. What I recognized is that our relationship with money starts in our body. It starts in our bloodline. Because I can't just randomly have a limiting belief. When I started to really go to the root, there were generational patterns that were passed down to me that had nothing to do with anything that I currently did on this planet that I had to address. So for me, I'm like, what's the truth? What's the root? Let's go there. And then that's where the whole body of work came to life.
Yeah. And, you know, for those of you who don't know Victoria, you teach financial freedom really primarily to women of color, which is like badass work. But I feel like your start, and it was really unusual because you declared bankruptcy, and I felt like that was kind of like the opening where everything shifted for you. Is that right?
Yeah. Bankruptcy was the ultimate setback that turned into the ultimate setup. And it was a huge wake-up call for where I was not taking responsibility for not only my life, but my financial wellness. It's not even transformation or liberation at that point. It was just my financial well-being. And that's when I realized that my relationship with money has less to do with cash and more to do with my relationship with responsibility and my relationship with being provided for intimacy. And that's again why I think money is such an interesting intersection, because I don't know anything else that will have you confront those things. More money equals more responsibility. It equals more intimacy. It equals more impact. So when I filed bankruptcy, I wasn't just bankrupt cash-wise, I was also bankrupt in my own value. I had no sense of my own value. I had no clarity around how I was playing a role in this happening. So when I was on the outside of the courthouse, I sat on the park bench and I was just like, how did I get here? Like what happened where I'm sitting here and I just hit the thing on the thing and they said, you're done. I'm just like, what happened? And I felt God say, this is a correction. I am massively correcting things that you've been refusing to look at. And then I come to find out that there's people in my family that filed bankruptcy the same age as me. There were patterns. So like, regardless of your skin color or where you come from, look at the patterns in your family. Look at the patterns in the lines in your father's side, the lines in your mother's side. Even in the households that you grew up in, if you don't know your maternal parents, look at who raised you, because it's being passed down through the bloodline. And that's what bankruptcy brought me into contact with. At that point, it wasn't like a quick mindset shift. It was a deep correction and me breaking a chain that would continue to repeat through me, or that would be rewritten through me.
Wow, that's such a good point. Like, I remember my father years ago telling me that when he was little, he would look at his father and what his father had achieved in terms of like assets and lifestyle. And then when he was an adult and he was, 35, he had kind of ticked all those things off and he felt like, okay, good, I'm done. Like, that's it. And he would always tell me, I wish I had had a bigger frame of reference in terms of what was possible. And if I had dreamed bigger, I could have had more. But because I didn't know that, I never dreamed bigger. And this is just where I'm at.
Yep. And you want to do good for the people who raised you, or you feel, that's your marker of success. And maybe there was someone on his side of the family where any more success than that felt like a threat. And then every man in the family repeats that. And then they model it. And then everybody just continues to do that because that's what feels safe. That's what helps you survive. Success threatens our survival, whether we want to admit that or not, because it's going to require us to take a stand for things in an uncomfortable way. Even think about right now what you're responsible for versus when you lived in New York.
Oh my God.
So it's like, yes, you have more money, but you also have more responsibility. Your work is bigger, the way that you speak, the impact that you have. That level of responsibility, a lot of people are not comfortable with that tension. They're not okay with it.
And how do you develop more responsibility and more comfort with that tension?
One, you increase your capacity for tension. So in the money world, we'll hear a lot about increasing your capacity for more money, which I would invite anybody listening to this to replace the word money with increase your capacity for tension, because more money equals more decisions. So your decision-making skills will always mirror your money-making skills. The person who can't make a decision to save their life is the same person who struggles to sell and make decisions in their business.
God, how fucking real is that?
It's such a mirror. It's such a mirror. And the person who avoids making decisions, leaves things on red, doesn't like to confront things, are the same people who only make this much or have a struggle with going past certain incomes. So I realized that our decision-making skills show up in our money-making skills. So the first thing that I always invite my students and clients to do is, I'll give you two practical things.
Okay.
Number one is, instead of looking at your bank account and saying, I have this amount of money, or I even have this many clients, I invite them to say, I'm responsible for this much money. I'm responsible for this many clients. And what that's gonna do is start to give you feedback. And we need to have better feedback around how we're responding to certain things if we're ever gonna change it. So you might start to do that activity and say like, wow, I noticed when I said 10, I felt relaxed, but when I said 20, I started to feel like I had to rush. And it's like, okay, how is that showing up in your business? How is that showing up in your life? Because that's revealing to me where at a certain point that responsibility turns into pressure. And pressure always contracts us. So we just play with the valve a little bit and we start to familiarize the body with the sensation of responsibility. And over time you build this resilience and you build, almost like working out, 20 pounds used to feel heavy, now it doesn't. Same thing with the expansion of tension, the expansion of responsibility.
Right.
Then with your decision making, I look at money through archetypes. So we have the hoarder, the spender, and the avoider. The avoider tends to avoid making decisions, of course, but what they're really avoiding is contact with people. And more money is directly connected to how many people you're willing to be in relationship with at once.
Oh, shit, that's real.
It is. Because look at you, even with High Vibe Honey, there's so many humans. They don't all have direct access to you, but they think they're in relationship with you. And in the way they're in relationship with your body of work. There was a version of you who wouldn't be able to hold that.
Yeah.
That intimacy would be a threat to you. It'd be too much, or it wouldn't be something you wanted to take on. So what I always invite my students to think of is, where is your genuine curiosity to connect with people? Where is your heart hardened? Where is your hope for humanity dimmed? We need to adjust all of those things because that's directly connected to how much money you're going to make and how big of a problem you're going to solve.
So it's almost like dealing with your cynicism.
Pretty much.
And your like bitterness, jadedness, if you can like lift that off, you'll have better relationship with other people and then better relationship with money.
100%.
Wow.
Yes. But so many people are going
wild.
through money to try to get all that.
Yes.
And it doesn't work.
Yeah. They're putting the cart before the horse.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your other two archetypes, there was the avoider and then there was the hoarder and what was the other one?
The spender.
The spender. Can you just give us like a little rundown on these groups? Because I know everybody's watching is like, hang on, I think I'm a spender. Like,
I know. Almost everybody's spender. We have all of them. We go through a cycle. Like the avoider avoids the bank account, then gets the urge to spend, then feels shame and hoards it. So there's like a whole cycle that everybody goes through.
Okay.
And on the other side is what we teach inside the House of We is there's on the other side of that your wealth archetype. But the spender is somebody who actually, so where the avoider is afraid of intimacy, the spender is afraid of responsibility. So the work for the spender is not necessarily to spend less, but to become responsible for more. So it's a shift, because most spenders are like, if I stop spending as much, then I'll have more money. That doesn't work. Because then you get resentful, they start to feel like they're not free, they start to feel restricted. So I never tell my spenders to, okay, just stop spending that on that.
Make an aggressive budget and stick to it.
No, eventually, but right off the bat, they're gonna rebel against that.
Yep.
I've done that.
Same.
Right, so what I always tell them is, where can you become responsible for more?
Okay.
So each purchase, I always ask, do you wanna be responsible for that? And for me, when I did this back in the day and during my bankruptcy, I had to recognize that I'm not just responsible for the amount of money I have, I'm also responsible for the debt. I'm responsible for the repercussions that those purchases have. So with spenders, it's going from spending money to investing and circulating it. So let's look at shampoos, for example. I have a spender in CVS, and they're about to, spend money on shampoo, but I'm talking to them in their ear, and I'm like, okay, which one do you want to be responsible for? This one is going to wash your hair. It has a very clear solution to it because that's what shampoo does. It washes your hair. And technically, it's less money. But then you have this other shampoo that's maybe got organic things, there's non-toxic, and it's a couple dollars more. Which one do you want to be responsible for? This shampoo, you're going to have to rebuy it in another few days. It's going to ruin your hair, so you're going to spend more at the hair salon. Do you see the repercussions?
Right.
Even though that looks like you're spending less, you're actually not, it's not a responsible purchase.
Wow.
So then I'm like, get the shampoo you actually want and just own it. But so many spenders are looking at it like, I'm going to buy 4 of these cheap shampoos when I could just be responsible for this one big one. And that's because most spenders like to buy a lot of cheap purchases than investing in one big nice thing. And that might seem counterintuitive because yes, you're circulating more money, but what it's really allowing them to do is step into the role of the investor. I invest with my money. I don't just spend it. And then they start to circulate it and become more responsible with it.
Wow.
So it's a whole shift in the way that they're moving money through their economy.
Yes.
Then the hoarder ain't gonna buy no shampoo because they don't want to spend any money.
They're like, I'll just dry shampoo.
They'll literally
for 3
dry
weeks
shampoo.
out of the month.
They're the person who has like this much shampoo left. They'll pour water in it,
Oh,
shake it up,
God.
and be like, "This is my shampoo for another week," because spending money feels terrifying for them,
Yeah.
and it's because they. And I grew up in a household like this where 1 minute everything was fine and we could get what we needed and sometimes what we wanted, and then some weeks it was like, no. We don't have anything. And that back and forth, that black and white on a child's nervous system translates into 1, money's not safe or reliable. And 2, if the money's here, we better save it because this could be the last that we ever have.
Yeah.
So follow that all the way through to being an adult, then you're holding on to this, you just get a pay in full client, for example. You're gonna look at that as like, this is it. Even though I know there's more money coming and I have the ability to create more, this feels like my last little bit, so I better hoard it. But they think they're saving, and they're not. Because savings multiplies. Hoarding actually depreciates. So my suggestion and what I always support my hoarders with is you've got to shift your identity from I'm somebody who anxiously attaches and hoards to things to I am gonna, from a stable place, move money. So I actually recommend my hoarders have multiple bank accounts and they practice moving money. Just, it seems so simple, but like move $5 here, move $10 over here, move 500 and increase how much you move. And then eventually that'll show up in the way that you invest, how you purchase, the way that you circulate money will stop being so rigid and you'll start to feel this fluidity.
Wow.
Yeah.
You just blew my mind with that.
It's so fun.
It's so,
And it makes money, like the money work fun. It's no longer like, oh, you got to go through the shame. It's like, we all have stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so like what you're saying, there was this money mindset conversation that was so superficial, like skimming a rock across a pond.
I'm a money bag. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. Like,
Right.
okay.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But what's really happening?
What's really
when you buy the
happening?
cheap shampoo?
Right.
Because we don't think in a long-term way about everything. We're just like, oh yeah, this is the choice in the moment.
Yep.
And we really are oblivious to the fact that everything we do has a reverberation throughout our life.
Yep. It is. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
It's so fun. And I love it too because it gives everybody, no matter what level you're at, it gives you something to work with. I remember when I was filing bankruptcy and I was just in a really low state with my financial, awareness, but also well-being. And I felt like the money mindset work sometimes felt even too advanced at times. Me pretending and acting as if like some days you just can't. So this work gives you something to start with. And I feel like it eliminates the shame from the conversation. It eliminates the guilt and you start to feel this natural progression of, wow, the more that I engage my body, the more I engage new behaviors, the more I employ new actions, the more I create new feelings. That's the sequence that I've found most success with.
Right.
And most, it translates the most into the bank account.
Yeah, because I know that with House of We, you teach your We Flow method, and that is a method of moving emotion through your body, right?
Yep.
How did you come up with that? How did you create that?
It's a really interesting story that happened in my living room. I was watching a money mindset course from a person that I do think did great work. It just wasn't resonating with me because of now what I know I was moving through personally around money. So I was watching this course and I'm like taking all these notes.
Was this like pre-bankruptcy or post?
This was after.
Okay.
Yeah, this was after bankruptcy, probably 6 months. So here's the interesting thing. We Flow definitely supported me from bankruptcy into my first 6-figure year. But what I recognized was after the first 6-figure year, that's when the real work began. So if you want to work on your money stuff, make money.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be like, oh, that's there. Because why else would it show up if, all of a sudden these fears of being stolen from, like just weird things that I never felt before happened after 6-figure year. So that's where this memory is, where WeFlow really became developed. It wasn't necessarily to go from 0 to 10K months. It was like, you have money and it's triggering things. This is a practice to support you with that. So I was sitting in my living room listening to this money mindset. I'm just like, if I hear one more reframe thing, I'm just like, this isn't, like I get it, but it's not working. And I was like, if I could just rip this scarcity off, I would. If it felt like it was a itchy scarf around my throat, and I was like, I just feel like I need to wiggle out of it. So I closed the laptop, and that's what I got up and started doing. I just was like wiggling and moving and ripping this, what felt like scarcity off of my body. And it turned into me like shaking my hands, and I was just having this huge experience in my body. And I started to see behind my eyes my grandmother's hands. And I was like, wait, what is this? And I felt it in that moment that this scarcity isn't necessarily mine, but it's in me to transcend. So it's passed down through the bloodline. It's not just this random thing because I don't feel worthy. I feel worthy. I am enough. I feel all those things. And I still have these behaviors that are putting me in compromised positions. And when I thought about my family lines, I saw where, wow, they have those behaviors too.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? So then after that day, I recognized that I had come in contact with a practice that was finally going to work for me. So it really was just, I had no plans of ever telling anybody about my weird thing I did in the living room. I did not want that. So I was doing it by myself. I was practicing it. It turned into these different postures and movements, and it started to kind of tell this story of going from scarcity to overflow, but not through the mind, through the body. And I practiced it by myself. Then I went and I was like, let me see if this works on someone else. So with my private clients at the time, I was like, hey, I have this practice I developed. It's movement-based. I come from a movement background, and I would love to take you through it and see how you feel. And then they started to feel waves of relief. They started to have revelation. They started to feel this awareness, this peace. And I was like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah.
Then we led the first big class, and turns out it's helped now 8,000 people, and it's become this, it has like a life of its own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So cool. And I also love that we're talking about how money mindset work is important, but it's not the whole story.
Exactly.
And for me, tapping is a somatic practice. That's why it works. It's not just because you're saying words to yourself. It's because you're accessing your body.
Yep.
And that's where I think all real healing comes from.
Yep.
You can only talk about ideas and past stories and traumas so much. It doesn't get into your body. You're just living from the neck up.
Yep.
And it's not enough.
Because it keeps it as a concept versus an experience. So when you involve the body is now experiencing something else. I mean, I've even had men do this practice, and they have their own, and usually men, you won't find them doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I find it interesting because the body is the vessel that's housing all these different memories. And we could spend our whole life trying to heal the past, but that's impossible. And when we go to the present moment, we start to see that all that's happened is my body has brought this thing from the past into the present moment. So if I let my body experience and see what this is, I have a new awareness that can then help me make a new decision. And new decisions will change your life.
Yeah.
And that's what we see through tapping. I've seen it through my work. And so there's, to me, a much longer transformation that happens when you go this route. Then adding in the mindset is perfect because the soil
is fertile,
is fertilized and able to even receive that type of work.
Yeah. It's like regulating the nervous system and giving it a new a new reality, really, to then plant the seeds in.
Yep.
Changes everything.
It's really like working out, honestly. I mean, the We Flows feel like a workout because all we're doing is exposing the body to different levels of discomfort. And when we look at the context of money, most people are uncomfortable. I think it said in the data I was researching, like 70% of people actually have a phobia to money. It's called plutophobia, where they're actually afraid of becoming wealthy or they're afraid of wealthy people. And then in women of color, they're afraid of becoming rich because they don't want to become the oppressor. So when we get into those roots, it's like we're dealing with a fear of money, even though you say you want more.
Right.
So when we treat it like a workout, all we're doing is, okay, let's expose your nervous system, your body to this level. And let's expose it to this sensation and this sensation. And then the more you get familiar with circulating those sensations, somebody pays you or your investment account goes up and you don't freak out because your body's already been exposed to, oh, I know what that is. But if the body never gets readjusted, it's gonna run the show, no matter what you do to your mind.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about these like 3 kind of like limiting places that we can be in our money. Can you tell us a little bit about what the wealth archetypes look like? Where can we go with this once we're, like, what does it look and feel like to be through those 3 stages?
Yes, so let's go with the avoider first because that's what we started off with.
Okay.
The avoider, down on the inside of them, they are really the financial catalyst. So I want you to think of somebody who has said, I want a relationship, I want to be with somebody, but then they date somebody and within a few dates they're like, I don't know, this is getting too much. They stop texting back. They're just not very emotionally available. Then that same person does work and they end up in a relationship. 9 times out of 10, they're like the best lovers. They're the best people because their heart is finally open.
Right.
It's the same thing with financial catalysts. They change the economy with the way that they circulate money. So the financial catalysts go from avoiding intimacy and avoiding their bank account to doing some of the greatest things in the world with their money. They create pathways for others. They do things in different and new ways. They have a very catalyzing and like a very momentous perspective on money now because they're no longer afraid of the sensation and all of the exposure that it's going to bring them.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is when you start making money, all of a sudden then people have opinions.
Oh yeah.
All of a sudden then people have things to say to you. So for an avoider, it's safe to not make money. Nobody bothers them.
Yeah,
They're
you
like,
get to be invisible.
nobody, you get to be invisible.
No one gives a shit.
Nobody cares.
Yeah.
And so for the financial catalyst, now they're breaking through that and they're like no longer afraid of this intimacy. They're no longer afraid of this visibility. So they do amazing things and they create amazing communities and they're socializing and they're connecting people. They have this just electric energy to them.
So that's you, right?
I would say yes in this season.
Okay.
Because again, we have all of them. But in the beginning, I identified with the spender. Then I kind of did go to the avoider.
Okay.
Because when I started to make a lot of money, I was like, okay, I don't need to worry about it anymore. And
Yeah.
I stopped looking. I stopped being as aware of it.
I've been through that too.
Have you felt that?
Yep, where you're like, oh, cool, I'm chilling.
You're kind of
I don't even have to think about this anymore.
Exactly. And
And
you're
then-
enjoying that.
Yeah, and it's great to not think about
Yes.
it. And then a little while later, you're like, oh.
I'm avoiding.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What's going on here?
I haven't talked to anybody. Haven't looked at the bank account. Don't want to be bothered. And anytime I get into that, I'm like, okay, where's my catalyzer? Like, I'm a mover with money. I'm meant to bring new things to life. Like, even this is a very catalyzing project. It's using money to bring change to the planet in some way. So I would say yes. In this current season, I could tend to lean into the avoider. In the beginning, I would say it was the spender. So the spender is really the holy circulator, and they circulate and stimulate the economy. So if everybody on the planet stopped spending, the economy would collapse.
Yeah.
So I never say, there's nothing to brag about by saying you don't need money. I used to be that person who was like, I don't need money. I used to scream it from the rooftops. I'm going to show you that you can be happy without money. And I was like, okay. Settle down.
And on the inside, you're like dying.
And the inside, you're broke and unhappy.
Yeah.
And the spender has to get over the righteousness of, I'd rather be right than rich. Like, I'd rather be right about why money's evil and bad than be rich. And so when the Holy Circulator fully comes to life, they start to stimulate the economy in huge and big ways. So the spender goes from just spending money on these frivolous things and just trying to get something and get something and get something to they give. They become generous. They become responsible. They become stewards. They bring to life huge projects. They bring to life rooms that otherwise wouldn't exist. They have a clear financial vision, and everything, all of their stewardship circulates through that. So they no longer use money as a method of safety, but they steward it for a larger vision.
That's really beautiful. And it's interesting you say that. I could really see someone who's doing the little spend all the time, just getting the dopamine hit.
Yes.
But the real dopamine is in bringing people together, creating new experiences, creating new projects.
Yep.
That's so much more satisfying than I ordered all this shit from Revolve and here it is and I'm not even gonna try it on and
I'm gonna return half of it because I feel guilty. That's spender energy. And notice how that's not big business energy.
No.
That's not revolutionary energy. That's not leadership. That's not making an impact. So the spender, when she steps into the holy circulator, truly is stepping into their impact.
Yeah.
And their impact is directly connected to their income.
Yeah.
So there's this beautiful journey they go on. And that was probably the beginning of my journey. I was using money. I would say I was a user in some addictive ways to get, like you said, that hit. And when I stopped needing money as a method of safety and I started to realize it was a resource, that's when the circulation began.
I remember going through a phase of being like, wow, my spending's out of control. I'm gonna stop buying things for a month just to see how it feels.
Like a fast.
Yes, and what I noticed was how many uncomfortable feelings came up.
Yes.
That same when I've had a break from sugar for a month.
Yes.
You realize that sugar and spending give the same result where you're like, I don't feel good. I'm gonna do something to bump me up.
Yep.
And they're kind of the same feeling.
That is so true. There's even data that says procrastination when you're in a moment of, let's say you're overwhelmed with something and you're procrastinating, so many people will go window shopping then because it gives them this dopamine hit and this feeling of productivity. So that shows up in the spending pattern as well. And when we can recognize that, which does require us sometimes to step away and circulate our energy somewhere else, we begin to see, wow, I'm using all this energy towards this thing that's empty. What if I took that and did it towards this vision that God has placed on my heart?
What if I redirected the energy to something that I really care about?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And most spenders have to find out what that is. That's a big part of their work because their value has been in the material stuff, and they've created this life or this world where what they have matters more than who they are. So that's the shift they got to make.
Yeah.
Then they have this vision and they're like, okay, so if I don't spend my money on that, it's okay. That's getting circulated over here. And I'm actually, like you said, going to be more satisfied. So I love seeing the spender to holy circulator transformation because they just are some of the most creative people in the world. They were in that spending cycle because they had so much energy and sensation. They didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So then when they become more emotionally intelligent and more emotionally available to their vision, it turns into this huge kaleidoscope of beauty that they create. They literally create new economies and stimulate the economy in all these beautiful ways. So I love that journey.
Yeah.
And then the hoarder I love the hoarder because they stabilize the economy. The catalyst activates the economy, and then the spender expands the economy. So when we look at the hoarder, their journey is going from this anxious attachment to money to now they're the financial stabilizers. They're never going to be the type of person that splurges and spends on a bunch of stuff. So the first thing I tell my stabilizers is stop trying to be that. That's just not what matters to you. You much rather invest in a house. You much rather put your money in these different stable pockets. But the transformation is pleasure. The transformation is joy and having more fun and feeling alive in their relationship with money. So no longer needing money as a cloak, like they kind of carry it like a cloak, to now they move that cloak off and they're in the world. They're connecting with people when they want to, but then they have this beautiful environment they've created where it feels prosperous for them and it feels like they're actually enjoying what they have received, because the hoarder doesn't actually enjoy what they have. because it always feels like it's running out.
Right. It's
So
never enough.
It's never enough. So when they finally switch and they can look around and feel proud and feel safe and feel grounded, they end up bringing this beautiful, stable, even logical conversation to money that is incredibly refreshing, especially because most people, I'd say 80% of the population is on the catalytic circulation side.
Yeah.
And then you got your stabilizers, and even I have one person on my team, my bookkeeper is a stabilizer, and I love it. I love the conversations we have. She invests in a lot of silver and gold.
I mean, I love that your bookkeeper is a stabilizer. Like, how perfect.
Yes, it's so perfect. And the way she circulates money is completely different than me.
Yeah.
Because we value different things. So for the hoarder, it is understanding what you value and no longer being ashamed of that, but creating a stabilized environment for that to bring you joy and for that to uplift you and enjoy the process.
So let's talk about the idea of manifesting in business.
Okay.
Because this is a hot topic. And I think that having the ability to manifest money is important. Having the trust in yourself to bring things to fruition when it seems like there's nothing around is very valuable and important skill. But also when I have to pay my rent, I don't sit down and think about manifesting the money for my rent.
Yeah.
And like you've said, this is not a sustainable strategy in a business. So I'd love to hear your take on manifesting in business. Like, do we use a little bit? Do we like walk away from it? Where do you think is like the most?
Yeah. I love the way you're asking it and the perspective, because though there's the popularized teachings of manifestation, I don't personally align with those. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. You do what feels good for you. That doesn't align with me. I look at business as a science of commerce, and I look at branding as an art of communication. So for me, I don't manifest in business. And the way that I feel things moving through me and the way that I run my life is through more of a faith-based lens. I feel like God manifests through us. So I could say everything I want, and I mean, maybe, but if God doesn't want to do that through me, that's not going to happen. So my flip, and this happened years ago, was I'm not really worried about my desires. I desire what God wants for me. And that's just changed my life in such tremendous ways. And it's brought a level of peace where I trust who created me. I trust the creator. And so why wouldn't I trust the desires that are going to move through me? So when I look at business, I'm not necessarily in the conversation of, I need to manifest this amount of money. I'm in the conversation of, how can I serve people? What is going to be most helpful? Because business is the science of commerce, which is the exchange of goods and services. And we just discussed how money is directly connected to how many people I'm going to impact.
Yeah.
And it's directly connected to the problem that I'm going to solve. So the people who solve bigger problems make bigger money.
Yeah.
So I'm always in that conversation of, what level of problem am I going to solve? So House of We, for example, is a 7-figure problem. I could have easily said, I'm going to do a course that serves, 10 people a month, and that's just what I'm going to do. We're going to work with this group, and we're going to do this type of work. But I saw something bigger. I was like, I want to revolutionize the way that people go about their relationship with money. It's a big problem to take on.
It's a huge one.
Humongous.
It's a huge one. And I respect it. Like when I read through your marketing material, your sales pages, I'm like, this is a movement, it's a revolution, it's a life work.
Yeah.
You're not like in and out in 2 months.
No, it's bigger. And some people will be like, I don't want to do that, and that's great.
Sure.
But then you have to understand how the economy works. So within your business, you have your own economy. So it's not that your audience is cold, for example. It's just you haven't changed the temperature. You haven't changed the atmosphere. I don't think that a lot of people want to take that level of ownership and level of responsibility.
Or they want to blame the algorithm or whatever.
Yeah. Or they want to just become good at manifesting, and it's like, you could go that route, but I have found there's so much more reward. There's a longevity and a stabilization to knowing how to have a skill, translate that into an outcome for thousands of people.
Yes.
Knowing how to do that fluently, you will always, always, always make money.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
is a formula for wealth. And I wanted to become very familiar with that formula. And that doesn't mean that I don't have conversations with God and share my desires, and I don't have visions, and I don't have things that I want to bring to life that have nothing to do with business. But I'm just not in okay, what am I going to manifest this month? That doesn't feel stable to me. And I don't recommend that if you're doing a 7-figure business.
Well, also, I mean, I'm trying to think of someone who has a really big business that's just manifesting their way there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't think of anyone. Can you?
I've seen it, and I've seen them collapse. Because manifestation doesn't develop your character. In fact, you can skip the development of your character and get the thing, and then it crushes you. So, and I've done that before.
So real.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, if you are walking into bigger rooms or onto stages, and you're, let's say, like at this point in both of our careers, we are responsible for thousands of people. I'm not responsible for you like going to the bathroom and feeding yourself.
Right.
But I'm responsible for my body of work giving you what I said I was going to give you and delivering on that, showing up on time, pressing play, getting to the next thing. Like that, you can't manifest work ethic. You just become it through the experience of doing things that are uncomfortable and listening to where God is calling you. So that's what I always tell my people. I'm like, manifest your way there, but then you're gonna have to go back and develop the character to actually keep it.
Right, you're still gonna have to do the work.
You're still gonna have to do the work.
I once had a boyfriend who was like convinced that he could meditate his way to $1 million.
Oh my gosh.
Convinced.
I just, like, can't.
And it's like you are gonna beat your head against the wall forever, and if you took that energy and put it into building a skill or a business or a talent,
Yes.
you would have had it yesterday.
The only reason why I can talk about it this way too is because I was that person who was listening to the meditation that told me, you're gonna be, just keep listening to this. Every night I would put it on. And we have to understand that our ears are gates. So when you're just listening to all that, it's almost like saying, I'm gonna build muscle and work out by sitting here and watching the workout. And I watch it every day, and I know the moves, I know what they're gonna do next, but the muscle is not developed enough to actually lift the weight. And when God calls you to the stage, it's not gonna be about what you manifest. It's gonna be like, can you lift the weight to take the first step onto the stage?
1,000,000%.
And not everybody can.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at business. I take a more science approach. I really I encourage all my clients and myself, I'm constantly looking at the economy that my business is creating and understanding what the economy of relationships mean. My money will only be as prosperous as my relationships. So if I go a whole week and I don't have any relationships, I haven't made any exchange of value with people, it's gonna show up in my business. And when you're so busy worrying about yourself in your journal, talking about everything you want, it's not about you. It's about what are you giving value? What value are you giving to the marketplace? Start thinking about your people. Start thinking about your audience. How can I be helpful today? And money will come. But so many people have their back turned, and they're just like, I'm just gonna write my way there. I'm just gonna meditate my way there. And it's just all focused on self, and that's not what business is about.
A fucking word.
Yeah.
God, that was so good. I'm obsessed with you.
I love you.
Every time I'm with you, I'm like, this bitch is deep.
I'm very deep, and you know that though.
But it like surprises me every time. I don't know, like there's just so much.
I feel like there's a misconception, and I don't know if you felt this too, like both you and I are very unapologetic in the way that we step on the earth. So there's this assumption that we are an open book and we just kind of are sharing everything. But I actually enjoy when people ask me questions because there's more that will come out than I would probably share if I was just here by myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel the same for you. Whenever I've asked questions or dug a little deeper, there's like so much more underneath the surface. But I think because we move really loudly on the world, people think that we're saying everything we have to say.
Right.
But there's so much more behind it.
So much more.
Yeah.
Well, I'm deeply grateful. Like this has been so illuminating for me, and for the
you.
whole crew sitting in the room and also hopefully for everybody watching. But I want to ask you our sexy 6 questions.
I'm so excited for this part.
This is kind of like my favorite part because it's just like I get to really put you on the spot.
I'm scared and excited. My favorite feeling.
Your loafers are shaking.
My loafers are shaking.
Okay. All right. What did you want to be as a child and how are you honoring that today?
I wanted to be an author and I'm about to publish my first book. So,
oh my
yay,
God.
6-year-old VW.
Ah, that's beautiful. So good.
I love her.
Yeah, I love her too. I'm in a phase of being really obsessed with people's like little self.
It's the best.
It's the best.
Do you want to love someone? Just remember that they were a child.
Yeah.
You know?
It's hard to be mad.
It is. I used to have a picture of my 5-year-old self on my phone when I was in my journey of just receiving myself in a bigger way, and it's the best. Mm-hmm. It really is.
Yeah. It shifts. You have so much more compassion for yourself.
You do.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. What is the name of the movie of your life?
Oh my gosh. I don't have a specific movie, but there's a type of movie that feels like it most speaks to me. The one that's coming through in this moment, it's not the movie of my life, but it's called One Day. Have you seen the series?
No, but I know you've talked about it a lot.
I'm obsessed. Okay, and it's not that the storyline was my life story, but there was something in the sensation of all these small moments that seemed like they didn't matter as much at the time being the full story. And I feel like that's my life, is like I'm gonna get to the end and see like all these small moments were building and building and building and building and building. It turned out that that was the story. But we spend our whole lives trying to like be the story. It's like, it's happening right now. And that's what I felt when I was watching that series. And I was like, they have no idea that the biggest story of their life is unfolding in this small, meaningless moment.
Right.
So I feel like that's what my life feels like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, like all the small parts.
Are adding up.
Yeah, to something so much bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Who's on your spiritual board of directors and why?
Jesus. That's it.
Felt like you were going to say that. I kind of knew that one was coming.
Why? Because he's just everything.
He's the dude.
He's just everything. Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God.
Love that. Okay. What is your life philosophy?
My life philosophy. Jeez, Gala, these are...
I know.
You're asking a deep woman these big questions. I'm just like,
I know,
let me dig through the archives of my soul. My life philosophy. Okay, my life philosophy changes by chapter. And right now, my life philosophy feels like love. I think when you know how to genuinely love and your heart is soft, you are going to live life in the biggest way you possibly can. And I think I've spent a lot of my life running from that and thinking that achievement was going to do that or power was going to do that. But it's love. It's love in all forms. And I've been seeing how that has brought so much fruitfulness and richness to my world. And you know me, I've been in a chapter of being single, and so I didn't realize how much of my life was spent trying to figure out how to love someone else and what I was going to get from that love, which wasn't really love.
Yeah, it's a trade.
It's a trade. And so now, being single for like a good extended amount of time, you almost kill off all those codependent cords, and it's just like, I'm gonna love because I am love, and that's just what I want to bring to each room. I want to bring to each situation, and I want more people to feel that. And I think that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What's on your bucket list?
The big one right now is, the big one was publishing a book, but that's happening this year. Nothing's coming to mind right now, but it's because this past year has been very bucket list heavy. Like I went to Europe for 6 weeks. That was a big bucket list. Traveling solo, getting certain opportunities this year. There's so many, like, I feel grateful that I can say in this moment, like, the bucket list has been bucketed. Like,
The bucket is
like,
full.
It's full. I'm really happy and grateful. And I don't have one that's coming to mind in this exact moment.
Okay.
Maybe going to Switzerland. I've always wanted to go there.
For the chocolate or the cows with bells around their
I
necks?
just feel like my entire soul's gonna come alive there.
Really?
Like I have this vision in my living room. Okay, actually, here's a bucket list.
Okay.
This is so cheesy, and I feel cheesy saying it. I don't want to put this in a bucket list, but I had this moment on my couch after coming. I was looking out at LA. I have this beautiful view of LA, and I heard God say, "Go home." Home is Connecticut, the country. So I flew to Connecticut, surprised my sister. And I was like, why? I knew why I was there because I wanted to see her, obviously. But I could feel that there was something that was going to be revealed to me. And my sister has a 3-year-old, so I'm helping her out with him and doing all these things. And then I get on the plane, I come back home. I'm sitting on my couch finishing this amazing book that I was reading. I'm into fiction right now. And I just started bawling at the end. It was about God and how he redeemed this woman and all these things. So I'm like bawling at the end. I don't cry at books. I'm like, what is going on? And as I'm sobbing, I just say out loud, I want a family. And I looked around my apartment, I was like, no, you don't. What do you say? And I literally was like this. I was like, what did I just say? And I realized that is something I really want. That is something that I truly see as an experience that I would love to have in this life while I'm still here.
And something that you said you didn't want or thought you didn't want for a long time.
I've always said I want to be married. I've always seen that. I remember we were in Sephora, and you were actually telling me, I ain't never getting married. You were trying to convince me that I don't need, literally, God was like, yeah, that's not necessary.
You don't need to get married. Why would you do that? And now I have like a ring on my finger.
And I remember being like, at that point, I was like, I don't know if I want kids. I don't know if I don't know. I didn't see that. It's so funny how you can feel worthy for big business and all these things, but like having children and being a wife I was like, oh yeah, God doesn't choose me for that stuff. Like in that moment, it was like merging all these things. And I didn't realize that going home and being with my nephew, it's really activated this part of me that I hadn't accessed yet. This version of me that's not going so fast, isn't on a stage, but it's like, maybe I learn how to milk a cow, and that's what Switzerland feels like. It's like, maybe I'll milk a cow and I can see a baby. I don't know, it's weird. Like, Switzerland feels like part of that life.
Well, I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see. I haven't really shared that out loud.
Well, thank you for sharing it with me.
Maybe it'll come to pass, so we'll see. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, final question is, what would you like your tombstone to say?
Oh my gosh, I don't know if I want a tombstone.
Really?
No, that feels weird to me.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like I want everybody who I've touched in my life for me to be on them. Like, I want them to be I don't want to say the tombstone, but I want them to be the
legacy.
The legacy. That's always meant more to me. But I don't know, maybe I think I'm a cremated gal.
Okay.
And just fly me across the ocean and I'm gonna go to heaven. And I pray that everybody I connected with here still feels that even when I'm gone.
I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this.
Those are some of the best questions. I was thinking completely
You're like
different.
sweating.
I am sweating. I wasn't sweating this entire interview, and I am drenched right now. With you asking
Did you think I was going to be like, what's your favorite color?
I thought you were going to be like, I thought you were going to ask me maybe about dating. I thought you were going to ask me what's the craziest thing I've seen. I don't know, but I'm sweating over a tombstone and a bucket
getting
list.
into some like deep, like, tell me about your childhood and what do you want to do when you die?
Literally, if you want to know who a person is, you need to write those questions down.
Seriously, it's like a personality test.
Do you think you could ask that on a first date, or are those too intense?
Well, I would, because I only want to talk to intense people.
Okay.
Like, if you can't answer it, we have nothing to talk about. It's never gonna work. Yeah, absolutely.
I love that.
Thank you.
This was so fun.
Good. So, thank you so much to you for being here. And where can everybody find you?
Instagram at The House of We if you want to do the money work, and then my personal page is at I am Victoria Washington, and that's the same thing for websites, www.thehouseofwe and I am Victoria Washington.
Yay! Thank you.
Thanks, girls. I love you.
Oh, me too.